like I feel like I was like slowly like dying.
What's up, guys? We're here today with my good buddy Mark Lopez. He owns a construction company that does over $2 million in revenue, cash flows over 30 grand a month on his $4 million rental portfolio, and just last year he bought a G-Wagon. So welcome to the show, bro.
Hey, let's rock, man. Thanks for having me.
So I mean, just super inspired by just like not only your business success but also your family success, and so kind of want to dive into that a little bit later. But what were you doing kind of like before you started investing in real estate, and then how did you kind of get into the real estate game?
Okay, so like before we invested in real estate, I just rented, right? Like everybody else, right?
Okay.
So I rented this one condo for 10 years
Okay.
to the day. I kind of have like a little bit of like fear of change. So once I found this one condo I was staying in, I was like, I'm not leaving. So I just kept renting there for 10 years. And I had like all these different jobs. Like I would bartend. So I bartended for years at BJ's restaurant and at like nightclubs.
I love BJ's, by the way.
Yeah, right.
Okay, so nightclubs, what were we doing in the nightclub?
So at nightclubs, I would like, the guy that's like bartending. That is like, I can't hear you. Like that was me, right? And like people are dancing above you and the whole thing. Like I really liked like the nightclub life at that time.
Like the action, like the
it's
excitement,
energy.
Like this was like in your 20s, 30s?
Yeah, so in my 20s. And then like maybe like 31, 32 is like when it stopped. But it was like, oh, dude, I could like work for 3 hours and make like as much as most people were making in a whole day.
Yeah.
If not more. So it was like, oh, dude,
that's one of the traps though, because like I have a buddy who's like he's a little older, but he's still in the nightclubs today. And so when he's in his 20s, he's like crushing and making more than all of us because like the tips are crazy, right?
Yeah.
But then it's just like his career advancement. He never kind of like graduated into like the like the corporate world. Even like let's say like you start off in and you're a salary guy, right? You start off to like 30, 40, whatever. Eventually, you'll kind of get to the six figures, but he peaked like super early at like 18, whatever, and then he just like he never kind of like he kind of plateaued from there,
100%. I struggled to leave. Like I had to take a serious pay cut when I left bartending.
Yeah.
Excuse me. I struggled. I was like making good money bartending, barely working any hours, so it was really, really hard to leave. But what happened was like I actually saved up like $27,000 and I had it like in a shoebox.
That's typical bartender, right? Because your tips, right? Like, that's crazy. Okay.
I was like, okay, I'll spend the ones and like save everything else, right? That was my method. That's
a good discipline. Yeah, okay, love it.
So it's like
rubber bands, whatever.
Yeah, I would like deposit like $1,000 in ones to the bank, right?
All the most responsible bartenders I know, they all have a tin can or a shoebox with their cash stash. All the irresponsible ones they're in debt and it's all credit cards,
Yeah, cash comes easy and goes, right? So it's like, so I saved $27,000 in cash, and then I want to say it was like right around 2009, right?
Okay.
I didn't even know that was a thing or a crash. Like people were talking about, I didn't know anything about it. But I was like, oh, maybe I should buy a condo. And I went to go like get, to see what they would lend. And they were like, oh, dude, you don't have any income. So it didn't matter if I had this $27,000. It was like, oh, like I had no money on the books.
Couldn't qualify for the loan, right?
So I needed like a W-2 to like show something. So then, so that's when I like went and I got a job in like in the pest control industry.
Okay.
And it was like a crazy pay cut in order to,
show on paper that you're actually making money.
Exactly. Yeah. So that sucked, but I was still bartending a little bit, right? Just to like, double dip.
Extra income and stuff. So.
But then my W-2, started taking off a little bit, and then I was like, oh, I'm gonna commit to this. It was like a sales job, so I was like, oh, I'm gonna commit to this. And I didn't know there was a recession. I didn't know there was a crash or anything. I just like put my head down and dove into it, and then I was like pretty successcible in sales. I was like top 1% in the nation.
You're very like a likable guy. Like, I think that goes a far way in sales.
Yeah. No, bless you. It was like it was a good thing, and it got my W-2 up, and I started learning more about the real world, because like bartending and
bartending is like his own bubble, right? Like the way you started working with like 7 at night or something, and
not even, bro, like 10, like 9:30 at night, and I'd be gone.
And it's always like it's like the crowd that comes to the awesome, fun people, but like they see the world like this way, and it's kind of like it's interesting because whatever kind of crowd you're in, you kind of osmosis to whatever everybody else is doing, right? 100%. So like as real estate investors, we just went to WealthCon. There's a bunch of other successful business guys, real estate investors. They make real estate investing sound very cool, right? And so you're normalizing that, right? But when you're in the nightlife, you're just like drinking, partying, having fun. That's just what life is about, right?
Yeah. So. No, 100%. I feel like everybody, like, I felt like I was the #1 saver in that industry. Like, oh, I'm winning, but it's like I was winning kind of a slow race.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? So I got in this new world, and then it's like, then it was like a W-2 race, right? So I was like, oh, I'm killing it. I'm gonna make 6 figures, and thought like I'm like on top of the world. Like I never had this much money, but in some on paper, but in some ways I was making less than I was making bartending. So it's kind of a weird, weird situation. Yeah. So I did that, and then, my wife and I, we started dating. We, I got real serious about the W-2 job. She had a W-2 job, and once we got married in 2013.
Okay.
I thought like, I knew I wanted to get a house. That's like the American dream. So that's kind of like what my dad did, right? He like bought a house, raised a family, and then it was like, oh, then we can get another house.
Yeah.
So that was always kind of like
in the back of your mind, you knew you wanted to like own a house.
Own a house, and then I thought like, oh, we'll be able to get like the way I would retire. I like never really trusted the 401k or retirements because I just know too many people where it went south.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, I just want to like get a buy and hold, and then I want to like get another house and rent it.
So and then live off the rent from the other guy.
Kind of like I didn't really know.
I didn't really piece it together. Just like a kind of in the back of your mind, you knew like somehow real estate investing would be involved in your retirement.
100%. And like I knew people that were like in their 70s and they were able to do that. You know what I mean? So I think that's how we got into like the buy and hold strategy. Our first property, we bought it in 2014.
Okay.
So like a year after we got married.
So to live in it.
Yeah. So. And it was a duplex. So that was part of the strategy. It was like, oh, we'll get this duplex. We'll live in one half, and then we'll rent the other side.
Did you read about this? How did you learn about like because right now everybody calls it house hacking, right? So you live in one side and you rent out the other. Was that friends, family? Like how did you figure that strategy, or did you just come up with yourself?
So I just kind of figured that out. Okay. So when I was growing up, my dad, they bought a house. They moved next door. My dad built another house next door on an empty lot. Okay. So when I was growing up, we mostly lived in that new house. And then he rented the other house that's right next door to like family members and things like that. Okay. So I think that was always like the method. I was like, oh, like we'll just have a bunch of houses in the same neighborhood and we'll rent them out, and then they'll get paid off and money will come in.
So it's almost like your dad normalized real estate investing for you at an early age because you saw it happening and you're around it. So renting out one house or like living in one house and renting out the other, that was just kind of like a thing growing up.
Yeah. And like Mexicans, like we just kind of like live in the same neighborhood. Like people live across the street from their my grandma lived across the street. My sister lived next door. We had like 3 houses on the same street. But it's like, everybody's in each other's business and stuff like that. But it was like, oh, like we're all kind of together. Yeah. So that's cool that you said that. Yeah, my dad kind of like normalized it. So I guess that was always the vision.
Okay.
So we bought that duplex and then fixed it up, and then my it's kind of weird like being next to living next to somebody else when you once you're like starting to have kids and things like that. So we actually moved into a house that my father-in-law owned, and then we rented the whole duplex out. Okay. And we still have
just for your privacy and stuff. Yeah. You're raising your kids.
Yeah. So we still have that duplex to this day.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah. So I've never sold anything. Yeah. Right.
So everything in real estate, you're kind of like acquire it and hold it for the rest of your life just to cash flow forever kind of thing.
Dude, it is, but it's so slow. But like that was kind of like the strategy, right?
Yeah. Excellent strategy.
Yeah. And then, so then we started having kids, right? So we had like, and I guess like as a parent, my thinking was I want to have one house for every kid. That was like the base strategy.
I love that strategy. Yeah. Okay.
So like, if something happened to me, it's like, or my wife, it's like at least we have a house for the kids that
each kid has their own house, so like they're taken care of in the future, whatever happens.
Yeah, so. I was always worried about that. Like so when I was young, my dad, he died when I was 10.
Oh wow, okay.
And my mom, so there's like 6 of us. So my mom, she had at least a house and a rental, and she had 6 kids. And my dad died young, so I always like had this like psychological thing, like thinking, oh dude, I could die young. Like you can die. Like I've been to a lot of funerals, right?
Yeah.
So like it's pretty serious. Like you kind of got to set your family.
So you've been through like kind of the process of what happens when the main breadwinner loses or at least a family.
Yeah.
And so like the impact of that, the one downside is now you don't have the active income, the kind of the figure that's the fatherhood figure. But because he left a legacy of real estate, now the family was kind of like it wasn't like the end of the road. There was some kind of way to kind of keep things going and not struggle to this extent. Like let's say if your mom had nothing at that time, right? So.
Well, and like fast forwarding, it's like, 35 years later or whatever it is, 30 years later, it's like my mom still has those houses.
Yeah.
They're paid off.
Yeah.
She can cash flow. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like she's not really in a refining, but she's all about paying off. She has like these houses that are paid off.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So it worked. It took decades.
Yeah.
But like their strategy worked. So I was like, I want one house for every kid in case something happened to me. I was just always thinking like, if something happened to me, like what my kids are taken care of.
Yeah.
So then, you have more kids, you got to buy more properties, right? And then you get there. It's like, we were able to buy, the duplex. Well, that's like kind of two.
Okay.
And then we, when the market shot up, we pulled money out, bought another house nearby. So it's like, okay, that's 3.
So are you guys doing this all on your W-2 and your wife's W-2? Just saving up for a down payment, like 10% down, 5% down?
We didn't even really do it. So I'm a veteran. So we were able to do the VA. Yeah, VA loan. And then once it went up, we just kind of bird it, pulled the money out, bought another one.
Okay.
And then pulled the money out.
So like the strategy is like, let's say, you might share numbers or?
Yeah.
So
go ahead.
The first one you bought for?
$720,000.
$720. So down payment is $0 down. And then it probably appreciate over time. So now at a certain point, how did you like pull money or refinance out of it?
So we refied it when it went up to like 900,000. It didn't take that long.
Okay.
But we were like, what happened was I was listening to Bigger Pockets.
Okay.
And I had this sales job, so I was like driving all the time. Yeah. So I mean, I listened to like Bigger Pockets 2. Right, like every episode, like from like 2 to like 130.
Same thing. That was like my entire start of my education. All Bigger Pockets episodes. Yeah.
I was like, dude, when I met Brandon Turner, I almost cried because I was like, yo, you changed my whole life.
Dude, I said the same thing.
Yeah.
So it's a crazy story. We were in Maui. We were in Maui. I was like starstruck because you listen to this guy for like hundreds of hours, right? Like you feel like you know the dude, but he's like a celebrity to you, right? Like it's my so I was like, we're in Maui, like my friends meet up. He's came to hang out or whatever. I was like, oh my gosh, it's Brandon Turner or something.
Dude,
I met him. I was like, dude, you changed my life. And this is what he told me. He said, no, you changed your life.
Wow. Dang. He didn't tell me that.
He didn't tell me the most humble, cool guy. Like,
he was really sweet. I actually took a photo with him. I met him at WealthCon. And same thing, dude. I was starstruck. I got emotional talking to him because I was like, yo, you literally changed the pattern of my life. And I was like addicted to it. I literally would listen to Bigger Pockets and I would rewind it. Like, wait, what did they say? Who's the guy from Seattle? Should I buy in Seattle? Like, I just was so, and my whole time was just kind of like mounting my plan to leave. I realized like the W-2 thing, it wasn't going to work. I feel like depressed here. You know what I mean? Like I'm making okay money. Like this is the American dream.
But it seems like a trap, right? Like there's no ceiling. So when you invest in real estate, there's obviously like you can lose money and there's like a lower floor, but the ceiling is so much higher.
Yeah.
And the opportunity for freedom, like if you're at W-2, you're never gonna reach financial freedom at like a normal salary. But like with real estate investing, there's a possibility at least that that you can reach that point where you're not working and you're actually getting like cash flow income, right?
It's crazy, dude. Yeah, you have to be there at a W-2, right? Yeah. And I think so I just like would dive into Brandon Turner or Bigger Pockets. I mean, for years.
Okay.
Like, and I would like send like, yo, you got to listen to this episode. I'd be calling people, and so it's kind of like a weird God thing, right? So like we bought the duplex. We kind of didn't know what we were doing. It started making some money.
Wait, so you buy a 725. At a certain point, it was worth 900. How long did that increase take?
I want to say it took about like 2.5 years.
Which is crazy. Which is like, so while you're living in a duplex, $0 down with the VA loan.
Yeah.
In 2 years, you basically made $200,000. Like, it's all like you didn't earn it, you didn't deserve it. Like, you don't.
Yeah.
You just
Wouldn't do anything.
You just put down that $0 down, and then somehow you earn $200,000, which is basically like 6 figures a year doing absolutely nothing, right?
Yeah. No, I know. It's like impossible anywhere else, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, when we saw it going up, we were like, oh, dude, I think this could be worth a lot. I heard this thing on Bigger Pockets.
Yeah, yeah.
You could like Burr method, right?
Okay.
So then, so we went to refi it, pulled the money out, and then the interest rate was even better now, right? Because the interest rates were low. And then it was like, I just felt like I had this money burning in my pocket.
Yeah,
I got to find another property. So then we found this, a single family home on an R4 lot.
Okay.
So it's like a single family home surrounded by buildings.
Okay.
So I was like, oh, dude, I think we'll buy that. And then I just started dreaming, like, one day I think I'm gonna have a construction company and it's gonna like turn that house into like units. And we still have that house. We haven't built it out to units.
Yeah.
But I think it's gonna happen, right? Like it'll happen. So we kind of did like a weird house hack on that property. So we fully remodeled that house.
Okay.
Way overspent. We like
was your wife making the design decisions, or?
You know what? She was making some, but she's like, I really think we should watch the budget. And I'm like, no, I want this place to be nice. It was me, bro. It was me. So like, it's like I'm not a contractor at that point yet.
Okay. So you're still working your W-2 at this point, so.
But I'm like, oh, like we open up this wall, we could do this. We way overspent on the rehab, but we made it really nice. It's like a 1911 Craftsman.
Okay.
So we made it really nice and still honored the craftsman, but it was a big lot, so we actually pulled the back fence all the way to behind the house.
Okay.
And behind the house there was like asphalt, like somebody had like a basketball court back there, so we converted that basketball court into a parking lot.
Oh wow, okay.
And all the buildings are right there and there's no parking.
Oh wow, yeah.
So we rent 11 parking spaces by the month.
That's so genius. I mean, like just the creativity to, because like one of the cool things we're gonna say is you get passive income, right?
Yeah.
There's literally like nothing more passive almost, I'd say, than like a parking lot. Like, there's
there's no toilets.
There's no plumbing.
Yeah, there's no light. Yeah,
it's just concrete on the ground.
It's
right?
stripes. Yeah.
That's crazy.
I didn't hear it. My brother-in-law, he was like, I think you should put a parking lot here. I'm like, okay, whatever. I mean, like, you have to hear it 7 times.
Yeah.
They're like, hey, literally everybody was like, you should put a parking lot here. You should make a parking lot. Would you rent me parking space? Like, no. And then finally, like some like single mom, like when I was like working at the house, because I was like doing all the like maintenance myself.
Okay.
She came up and was like, would you ever rent a parking space here? And I was like, and she had like a little baby with her and stuff. And I was like, she's like, oh, dude, like I walk down the street. You never know whether you're going to park at night.
Yeah.
So I was like, I guess.
Yeah. Like safety for her, for her family or for herself. Right?
Yeah.
So.
But it took years for me to like figure that out.
So like for like it's like the idea goes there, but just like the mental block of like, I should do this or not. Just like, it took like the single mom to kind of like break that, to kind of make you take action.
Yeah. And then, then we were like, it came up with a plan. Like, how could we maximize the spaces? We were able to get 11 spaces out of it. And then we just rent them like by the month, like $130 a month,
awesome.
Like, which is cheap in that.
Yeah.
Like street parking's astronomical.
I mean, we rent stalls in our condo too in Hawaii. And like, I mean, like, it's the more, because then like everybody has cars, like it's just convenience, and you're buying time back too, right? So the big 100%. Thing is like, if you have to look for parking or share a stall, like you're just wasting so much time. Just that the $150 a month, like I probably buy like 4 hours of my life, like every month or whatever, like, just looking for parking or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, so.
Yeah, they love it. I mean, they park right there. It's safe. It's like well lit. It's gated in a not great area.
Yeah.
So like, so that house, it actually wouldn't cash flow if we didn't have the parking lot.
Okay.
Yeah. So we bought that house, and then we do you want me to just continue with the?
Yeah.
Okay. So we bought that house, and then we kind of held for a while. So then the market continued to go up.
Okay.
So then we refied that first duplex again and that house.
So what is the first duplex worth at that point in time?
So at that point, they said 1.25.
So you bought it for $720.
Yeah.
Just over time doing absolutely nothing, right? You're just like existing, working your W-2 over here.
Yeah.
Your house on this side is just 700, 800, 900 million,
crazy.
1.1. It's just going up. So your net worth is rising.
Yeah.
Without you kind of realizing it's obviously there's like some paper money, like you're not feeling it.
Yeah.
But then in like a couple of years, you're able to pull that money out and actually deploy it or kind of like do other cool things with it, right?
It's crazy, right? Like you're still working. It did it on its own.
That's the one thing I think I love about real estate investing that I fell in love with it from Bigger Pockets is that if you're working a W-2, like you have to trade hours to make to grow your net worth, right?
Hours for dollars, right?
The more like renters you own, like let's say you own like one rental, okay, now now your net worth is rising like this while you're not working, right? You own 2 rentals, now it's rising like this. Now let's say you own like 10 rentals. Every year your net worth is rising without you doing any work or doing, and you don't deserve that money, right? So like every year, like for let's say like your rentals are going up like $100,000 a year, the ones that you're buying, right? So like if you own 5 rentals, every year your net worth is going up by $500,000, and it's like you don't deserve that net worth, but it's just growing on its own. Like that's like just the power of real estate, you know?
Yeah, no, that's such a good point. And I think like at that level, like if you have that perspective, it's like, oh, dude, it's just growing, and I'm not doing much. It's like, man, I want to be a good owner to the people that rent from us. Like, I want to be really good to them. If there's a problem, let's answer it real quick. You know what I mean? Because they're really the ones. They're like, there's the other side, right? Like, we wouldn't be doing anything if it wasn't for them. Yeah. So
that's a really good point too, because I think that sometimes landlords are looked down on because it seems like we're taking advantage of people by making money from them, right? But on the other side of the coin it's an opportunity for you to have control of an asset and do good in the world. Where, hey, if a mother needs like some help this month or something, like we actually like, I don't want to tell the story, but like, we get some people for breaks, but I don't want to but like you have like the opportunity to bless people's lives because you're in a position of like, you have like what's the power, or you have just basically you have something that where you can actually make decisions and use it for good, right?
100%.
And so I mean, and then just like the government, they actually incentivize you to become a landlord, so they give you a lot of tax breaks and things because they want to see everyday citizens become and help the communities around us by owning land, building things, and just kind of building houses for America, right?
Yeah. So. No, well, I like that perspective. I think like you know, that stigma where like landlords are bad or they just want to take advantage of people. Yeah. Man, I'm around investors. Like I don't know anybody that's just like, oh, I can't wait to like screw all these people over. Like I really don't. Yeah. Like I think they go into it with like landlords or owners. They go into it with good intentions, and then I think things get. It's like family stuff. Like it gets a little messy, and then there's like a panic, or it's like, well, they shot me, so I'll shoot them back. It's like weird, but I don't know one person that's like, oh, I can't wait to get in there and just like ruin lives or like kick people out or that. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. It's like there is a business to it, but I don't think anybody's like trying to go in there with a bad heart.
Yeah. I agree with you.
Yeah. So I'm grateful for our tenants. So that particular property, you know, so basically both of those properties rose in value from $720 on that one to $1.25 essentially. And then the other one, we bought it for, I think it was $412. Okay. And, you know, its last evaluation was like around $8. Okay. So we pulled money out of both of those.
Craziness. But
yeah. We pulled money out of both of those, and then we bought a house in Big Bear. Cause like Airbnb was like the thing. Okay. We're like, okay, like, you know, we'll get another house, right? So we got this house in Big Bear, and that's an interesting story. I was looking at all these houses; they were like around, you know, 500,000. These cabins, and we love to go to Big Bear and like snowboard and ski.
So you'll Airbnb and you'll rent over there when you guys go on vacation.
Yeah, and it was kind of my dad's dream. My dad always had this dream that he was gonna buy a place in Lake Tahoe. Okay. So that's like my goal, right? Like I love Lake Tahoe. It's like my favorite place. But Big Bear's like close to SoCal.
It's like the Lake Tahoe's little brother.
Yeah, 100. It's like the B Lake Tahoe. But it's, you know, it's got like, we snowboard there. My wife and I, we used to date and snowboard there. Like, I just love Big Bear. So it's like, okay, like we'll get a place there, right? Like we'll be, before Airbnb, it was like only the ultra rich could have a cabin that loses money. It's like, oh, now with Airbnb, maybe we could be an owner. So I was looking at these houses that were like 500,000. I was like, man, I like that house. I like that house. And my wife's like, I like that house. And it was like this house like by the water with a dock and everything. So we had like this like influx of money. So we were like able to like make some moves and purchase this house. And we purchased that one for right at 1.1 million.
Wow, okay. So it's like that's a big purchase.
It's like a more elite house. It's got like a dock. Yeah. And it was nice. It was an Airbnb already, but it was like real old and smelled like a dog and stuff like that. So by that time I had already had a construction company, and I sent my team up there to live up there for like about 6 weeks.
And help renovate it and stuff.
Yeah, and they renovated the whole place, and we got it up and running with Airbnb.
That's cool. That's very cool. So it's just, I mean, like it's cool to kind of see like the slow transition looking back where, okay, let's buy the first house. Okay, went up a little bit in value. I can leverage that to buy the second one. And now like, let's buy a third. The third one's now worth a lot more than the other two. The other two are rising. And over the next 10 years, all three of these guys are slowly like rising up in value, and then Airbnb and that probably cash flows like decently, right? Because like you're gonna.
You know what? We might not have done the numbers right on that one, right? So like you have wins and losses, right?
Yeah.
It's not a loss because the house is worth for sure more than what we bought it for.
Yeah.
But the Airbnb, you know, you have these. It's like roller coaster. It goes up, it goes down.
It's all seasonal too, right?
Yeah. So. In a mountain town, it's like when it snows, it's booked. When it doesn't snow, it's not.
Yeah.
Like in the winter, right?
Yeah.
In the summer, it rents really well, but it has these highs and lows.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of competition there. So I really like that house. My kids love the house. Anybody that stays there love it. It's like 5 stars, but it does have this time where like there's no demand for people to go up there.
That's a really good point. I think sometimes when I first started getting into, I think like the Airbnb game or like the short-term rental game, you gotta be very careful when you buy these things and when you're looking like at the previous month's rent. So like let's say like you buy like a house in Big Bear and you're buying it like this thing in January, and so like the owner's like, hey, and like January, February, December, we made like 30 grand a month from this thing, whatever, right? And you're like, oh, this thing is like amazing, right? But then what they don't tell you is like in June, July, then you mean like 3 grand or something a month. And so like crickets. You have to kind of take like the whole year as an average and realize that like your cash flow is going to go really high in certain parts of the year and then really low in others. But then like you have to be able to weather the storm on both sides, right? So like just when you're running your numbers, because I see like it's very easy to fall into the trap of just like not seeing like the whole year's worth of rises and falling.
100%. That's great. That's great advice, especially in those like mountain towns or beach towns or something. So we didn't like, we kind of like it is bringing in what we thought it would bring in.
Yeah. Okay.
But that seasonal, it is like a transition. You got to like prepare for it.
Yeah.
And then, but it is slower than I thought it was going to be. So we've done different marketing channels and things like that. But you know, they say that I learned from like Ryan Pineda's team and everything. It's like, that the money in the house is made on the buy, right?
Yeah, the equity that you
it's made on the buy, and I think our buy box was like higher or lower than what we thought, so we kind of like extended ourselves to buy that place, and I still think it was a great buy, but in terms of like a long term, we'd have to really wait it out, or sell, like if we sell quick, there's equity in there that we can get out. But if we hold it for a long time, I think it's still worth a ton.
Yeah.
But like, we lose a little bit of money on it every month.
The mortgage and like the Airbnb costs and everything.
And every house that I've ever bought in Southern California, we lost money every month when we first bought it.
Just because like the cost of the mortgage compared to rent, and so like I think they call this a price to rent ratio, right? Okay. How much can you buy it for versus how much can it rent? So like let's say like in Hawaii or Long Beach, you buy a house for $1 million, it'll rent for let's say $3,000. So your price to rent ratio is like 0.3, right? But let's say you buy a house in, let's say, Indianapolis or Ohio, you buy a house for $100,000, it'll rent for $1,000. So the price to rent ratio is like 1%. So then like, as opposed to like, let's say you bought 10 of those houses in like, let's say Ohio, $1 million worth of real estate will bring in 10 grand of rent. Versus like $1 million house in, let's say, in Long Beach will only bring in 3 grand, right? So,
if that, yeah.
Those kind of numbers, right? So like the same amount of real estate, but one just rents for like a lot higher than another. On ratio wise,
for sure. So once Big Bear, that was like a little bit of a rocky road, or it's like, oh, this thing's a wild horse. It like takes a little more attention than what we're used to, right? So that's when we still had some money. So that's when we started buying out of state. So we started buying in Ohio. So we bought a 4-plex in January or February of last year. I think it was February of last year.
Okay.
And then we bought another 4-plex in November. So we bought 2 4-plexes in 2023 in Ohio.
Yeah.
And we bought it just because, you know, like we're not cash flowing much in California, but in Ohio, it's like, oh, dude, the buy box is so much lower, and it was a kind of a cash flow play.
Easier entry, more cash flow, and so on.
Yeah. So I mean, and that's been good for us. It provides a little bit of like security, you feel like, oh man, like, you know, I got this like wild horse in Big Bear, but this thing kind of like
slow and steady over here, where this guy's kind of going up and down. So it's kind of like you're diversifying your real estate portfolio, right?
Yeah,
so.
I like it said that like that way, but just trying like different things, right? Yeah. It's like, oh, this is like a long game. This is making money right now. Like takes a little bit, brings a little bit of peace.
So this whole time, like, it's just really interesting where you're starting your story, just working a W-2, and you're accumulating this rental portfolio that it seems to me, it seems massive, right? Like slowly stacking the chips over and over and over. But like it's in the short, like 10-year span, like you've accumulated like $4 million worth of real estate. Just at what point did you start like construction company during this whole time?
So in 2018, I guess I had worked at that pest control company for about 9 years, and like went through the ranks, like sales job, got into management, region type management. And, you work that kind of job and you start looking around like, dude, this isn't it. Like nobody here has a life that I want. Mm-hmm. And not that they're good people. I love them. Literally like mentors
but like
to me.
When you're working at your W-2, you can literally see your future in 10, 20, 30 years, right? Because the guy who's been there 10 years longer than you, that's exactly where you're going to be in 10 years. Assuming that you stay like in the same industry, right? So like it's almost like it's like a crystal ball. Like, do I want to be here in 10 years or 15 years, right? So it's like honestly, like it's just a cool way to kind of like look into the future and see what your future would be like, and do you want that life or not, right?
Yeah, no, I like that you put it like that, because I do feel like I get like emotional talking about it, because like I had these people that I really looked up to. I loved high level of corporate America, and I would ask them like, hey, I would just say like, where do you see me in 10 years? And they're like, well, I see you with like, twice the amount in your 401k. Yeah. I see you like maybe at the next level of management. And it was like, that's crazy. I don't want any of that. Yeah. And like, a lot of them, they didn't have the relationships with their families that I wanted. Yeah. It just didn't, this isn't it. Right. Yeah. So I would get like kind of depressed. I was like, like eating, like kind of like binge eating, because I just felt like stuck. I was like driving in this like sales car all the time, or I was flying out of town a lot. Yeah. And I would, I just kind of was like I feel like I was like slowly like dying. Like I'm not playing, dude. I felt like I have everything. I have like houses, I have rental income. I have like a beautiful wife. My kids are like healthy. Like I'm living the American dream, and I am dying, dude. I felt like I was dying. I swear. So it's like, I don't know where to go, but I'm like listening to Bigger Pockets every day. Mm-hmm. So I did have a bit of a construction background. My dad was a builder. His dad was a builder. My uncles were builders. I just felt like it was in my blood. Like I know I can build. Mm-hmm. Like I know I can do it. I don't know how to use a hammer, but I know. No, I'm just kidding. Like I like buildings in my blood. Like I'm just gonna be a builder, right? And I always like kind of just set it out there. Yeah. So I went through the proper channels to make sure I got my license cleared, and I knew I needed to leave. So I had, left that organization. So what happened was I went to watch the Hamilton, play.
The Broadway one?
Yeah, the Broadway show, Hamilton.
I've never seen it, but okay.
It's crazy. It's crazy, right? So I went to, my brother-in-law was like, oh, I got an extra ticket. So I went to it. I didn't know what it was. I went to the Hamilton Broadway play, and I'm like thinking about leaving my job. I'm scared. I've been thinking about it for years. Okay. I'm just scared, right? Like everybody. It's like, I'm in this W-2, and I'm like, I don't know how to leave, and I'm scared. So I went to this Broadway show, and my brother-in-law had these great tickets, like 4th row. And I'm like, I don't even know what to expect, but they have this song, and he's like, I'm not throwing away my shot. I am not throwing away my shot. And he just keeps saying, like, I'm not throwing away my shot. Like, I only got one shot, right? So it was like, I was at this Broadway show, and I, like, started crying, and I was like, I'm going to quit my job. You know what I mean? And it, like a light bulb went off, like, dude, like, wait, my dad died. My uncles have died. All these people have died. Like, I only got one lap around this track. The sand is like slipping through the hourglass. I gotta go. This is crazy. I'm like slowly dying. Like I gotta live, right? So it's like it's like a dam broke open. Yeah. And it's like I gotta go. I'm running out of time. So since then, I like literally right after that I put in my notice. Hey man, I'm gonna be leaving.
So you didn't have any income coming in from the GC yet.
I'm not a contractor yet.
So you're just okay. So you put in your notice to quit before you even started making money as a contractor.
Exactly, yeah. Crazy. I wasn't even a contractor yet. Okay. But like I had the qualifications, like, okay, I just need to get my license. Okay. So I actually quit my job before I had a license.
So you're a typical example. You burn the boats. Like
I'm out. I gotta go, bro. Cause it was like, I've been like playing in like the middle, you know what I'm saying, for too long. And just like, it's been like a slow death. Yeah. I gotta go. So so my job, they were actually they were like, no, we have this other position for you. You can make more money. You can do this. And it was like, I don't want more money. I want Fridays off.
Yeah.
Like, I want to be able to like coach my kids soccer. I want to be able to get to games. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I need hours different. I need freedom. And so it didn't matter about the money at that point. Or so I thought. I thought like, oh, I make enough, right? But I didn't know what was like fully possible. Yeah. So
you also had a small rental portfolio at this point in time, so it wasn't like 100% no income. It was like a little bit of income for your rentals, right? So
there was
a little bit of cushion to kind of make that decision. So.
Yeah, a little bit of income, and I had like a bonus that was coming from my job. And
was your wife working too at this time?
My wife's working. She so we had healthcare.
Okay,
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So there was like some stability, but it was like, I actually was in this like men's group at church.
Okay.
And I was like still scared.
Yeah.
So I saw Hamilton. I'm like, I'm quitting. And then I got home and it's like, oh wait, maybe I'm not. Right? Like you're scared,
it's
right?
Emotional, right? Like roller coaster.
Yeah, I'm tripping.
Yeah.
So I go to this like men's group, and I tell my men, like my friends that are in the group, and I'm planning to tell them, hey, I'm gonna quit my stable job, and like my stable income, and now they're gonna tell me don't do it. That's what was my plan, so they could talk me off the ledge. So I said, hey, I have like, these things going on with my job. They're offering me this new thing, but I'm thinking about doing my own thing. But yeah, I don't know. I'm probably not going to do it. And I'm thinking they're like, take the safe route.
Yeah, they're like, hey, don't slow your horses. Don't be doing
Calm
anything
down.
crazy.
Don't do anything crazy. And then they said, everybody at the group's like, you should do it. Like leave. And I was like, wait, what? And they're like, you should leave. Like put in your notice right now. So then I felt like that was like a God moment. So I did. And I like went deep into prayer over it, but I thought something big could happen if I left. So I just left. I didn't have a license. I ended up getting I was like basically unemployed for a few months and just like working around the house.
So from that one decision though, like what were you making at the pest control company at that time?
It's like $140,000. Okay,
which is that's a very strong salary. But then now, what did you guys pull in revenue this past year at the construction company?
So we did $2 million in revenue.
My guy, man. Like
man.
that's, I mean, like the transformation to take that step of faith, and then like there's a lot of guys I think who take that step and then for whatever reason they don't make it. Like they have the faith in the beginning, but then when it gets hard, then like they decide to like they falter and they give up, right? But you're one of the few guys, or not the few guys, you're one of example of success where like you quit the 140, which is still a very high salary. And now you guys are doing $2 million, and you're on the trajectory up, right? So it's like congrats on your like success and like the journey that you're still on, but that you've already accomplished so far. So
yeah, I think it's like this battle where you like go in and you're like, oh, I'm on an upswing, right? Like I'm winning. All I do is win. And then you'll take some L's and you're like, wait, am I tripping?
Yeah.
But all I know is I can't go back to a W-2.
Yeah.
Like I've tasted freedom. I've like been able to like, my wife, fast forward, it's like, my wife works with the company. I can like pick up my kids if they're sick from the middle of the day at school. Like the access, that I have, and like the freedom,
the time freedom and stuff.
It's crazy.
And the big thing too is like when I just knowing you in a short period of time, your family is a huge priority. I know that. So I think that's probably a big reason why you're looking into your future to make sure that you have time with your family. But all your stories, I'm like you and your wife are hanging out like during the day. You're going to your kids' games and everything. And so like you're very successful financially. But then at the same time, you also have this family relational success that I think sometimes when guys are chasing money or business, then like the family gets put aside, where like it's just trying to chase that dollar. But like you found like a balance where you're able to really prioritize your wife and your kids while making like a lot of money. And like how are you doing that?
So I think like it's like you're like a product of your whatever your upbringing.
Yeah.
So I think since like my dad died when I was like 10, I like felt like like I was on the wrestling team or the football team, and it's like, oh dude, like I guess that'd be kind of cool to have somebody in the stands. So I think like with my kids, it's like, man, I just want you to know like I'm here, I love you. Like I say I love you, like I mean, like, hey, I tell my daughter, like, hey, I want to tell you something. She's like, you love me. Right? Like that. Cause I dump it on them. Like, I love you. I love you. I love you. And I'm in. So like, I coach their soccer teams. I just like put myself into stuff like I overcommit. Like I'm on the soccer team. I'm part of this. Like I'm, like we're committed to like going to church together as a family. We have to pray together. Like we have to do things together. If we're going to go out even like date night, it's like, oh, me and my wife have our date night set up. Our kids are like, we want to go. It's like, oh, come on. Right. So for me, I'm just like, man, you have to be in, you have to commit. And it's really difficult if you have a job that you hate.
Yeah.
That's so many hours of your life. If you have a job that you hate and you're not getting any wins, I think you can start feeling like a little bit of a loser. You feel like a little like you don't have control. But for me, I just like kind of always wanted to be there for my kids.
Yeah.
I wanted to provide a home for them and have, if something happened to me, I always think like I could die, right? And I'm not trying to be like negative about it, but like you really can die, right? So like Ryan got in the car accident, like God, protected them, but like something could happen like that.
It's crazy. I had like a small epiphany of that recently too, and so I was like, just got me thinking like, what if I was to die? What would happen? Obviously, we have some success in some real estate portfolio, but like, I think I'm gonna take a life insurance policy out of myself just in case, just so my wife's like taking care of, So just like planning for the future. It's always something I think is like you don't want to dwell on it, but it's like very healthy to like imagine like the bigger picture of like what if, but also like what happens also in eternity as well. There's so many like different things where it's like it's super healthy to think about death or like the fact that we're all eventually gonna pass away. You know, so.
No, I like that you said it's healthy.
Yeah.
Because it's like, I think people think like, oh, like you're self-fulfilled prophecy or something. It's like, no, dude, this is a guarantee that you're just not talking about.
Yeah.
Like it's a guarantee. So like for me, it's like I always think about what do people say at my funeral. So I think once I realized like, oh, like you're like your 20s, you don't think you can die. And stuff.
Yeah.
But once like, oh, dude, like Kobe gone. You know what I mean? Like I love Kobe.
Yeah,
when he died, I cried like a family member died. And like you're going to die. It's just like when. So it's like, what are people gonna say at your funeral? For me, it's like I don't want them to talk about like, you know what I mean? You can start controlling the narrative of like, oh, dude, he loves his kids.
But the thing is, like, if you imagine your funeral and like what they're gonna say about you now or then it's almost like you live your life with that endpoint in mind.
Yeah,
it changes you to prioritize the things that are important in the front or in their places.
Yeah,
and it also makes you a better person because you have like the bigger perspective or like a longer like horizon perspective, which is the longer term your horizon, it's always you make better decisions. So
yeah, I like
if
that.
you only think of like the tomorrow or today, or let's say like let's just eat bad food, let's just enjoy, like take the pleasure now. Like the short term decisions are always gonna lead to like long term like hurt, right?
Yeah.
But then if you always think of like the long term things, you're able to delay gratification, and so there's like the 30-year, 40-year, 50-year, infinity year like horizons. You always make the best decisions depending on like the horizon that you're considering.
I like that. Yeah, it's like your true north, right? Like your zero, right? Yeah. What do you like? Do you have like do you think about that? Like, oh, like at my funeral, I would hope.
You know what? So this is like a crazy. I mean, like I don't know if this is gonna like take like 5 minutes. Like
no, do it. I want to hear like.
Okay, so like
so Daniel Kong's funeral.
So this is me like in my room, right? So you go to church, you hear about Jesus, you think about like eternity, right? So like, how long is eternity? Like really in your bed? I'm in my bed.
It sounds pretty long.
I'm in my bed, like in my the lights are off. Right? I'm just thinking to myself, right? So like if I live for 100 years, that would be like a great life, right? That's a long time. What if I live till 100 years, right? So. Okay, now let's think about it. What if I live for like 1,000 years? Like I was there for like from 1,000 years, so 10 lifetimes, right? Like, that would be a crazy time to be alive, right? So just imagine like that number. So actually, what if I were to live 1,000,000 years? Like what if like since the dinosaurs or whatever, I was alive that entire time? That would be a crazy like amount of time to be alive where I experienced life, like 1,000,000 years, right? So okay, what if I were to live for like 1,000,000,000,000 years? Like my mind can't even starting to comprehend like the amount of time that just to live and be alive for like 1,000,000,000,000 years. Like imagine like your life like living like hour by hour, minute by minute for 1,000,000,000,000 years, right?
Yeah.
Okay, 1,000,000,000,000 years. Okay, that's crazy. I can't even fathom that, right? What if I was to live for a Google year? So a Google is actually a number where there's 100 zeros. So it's one. So a trillion is maybe like I don't know, like 9 or like 12 zeros.
Yeah.
But a Google is 1 0 0 0 0 100 zeros, like that many years, right? And so like it's okay, that's crazy. Like that. What if you were to live for a Google years, right? Like you're alive minute by minute, second by second for a Google years. Like how long would that be, right?
Yeah.
Then imagine there's a number in the universe where a Google is like the tiniest speck in time that like there's a number so large you can't even comprehend, like that makes Google look like super small, right?
Yeah.
Imagine if you were to live for that super large number right there, right? But and then that super large number that you can't even comprehend that makes Google look like a tiny the tiniest point in time. There's a number that makes that huge number you can't comprehend look so small that's even like bigger and larger than that, right? So like my mind's like you can't even comprehend already that, right? Then there's another number, another 1,000 million numbers where like that number is so small, and there's a number like way bigger than that you can't comprehend. And so that's infinity, and that number that you're trying to like you can't even comprehend already. There's a number that's infinitely bigger than that number of like so it just life. So if your life here on Earth is like 100 years or whatever it is, infinity or eternity is a freaking long time, you know. So just knowing that or being aware of like just how big that number is just helps you to understand like actually like life after death is way more important and way longer than like the 100 or so years that we have here on this earth. You know, so
no, that's a good way to put it, man. It's good. Like you start like I feel some kind of pressure, right? Like, and not like a crazy like. It's just like, oh, like this time that I do have, it's really short, right? So I feel like you got to make it count, you know? And I don't always, right? Like, like sometimes I just like sleep in. Sometimes I just feel lazy.
Same.
So, you know, like sometimes I'm not really present or something. But I think like when I am thinking like, oh, I do know I'm running out of time. It's like, okay, man, I want to make it count. I want to like, I want to let people know I love them. I want to like that I had my foot on the gas pedal and that I was like going for it, that I
You're
swung.
maximizing your life, right?
Trying,
like
man.
You're doing everything you can to maximize your time.
I'm trying. I mean, how do you feel? Do you feel like you're like in the same
boat?
Dude,
like actually like 2023, I kind of felt like I got a little lazy. Like I feel like I have so much more to give, like in all areas, like whether financially, relationally, business wise, and so like spiritually. So 2024 is the plan. I always like the beginning of the year, the plan is like, let's do more, let's get more done. So we'll see how it turns out. But I feel like I left a lot on the table in 2023. I mean, I think we still had a successful year, but I took it to like level 7, but I was like, hey, let's take it to like level like 10 or 11, right? Like there's still more room for me to like push on the gas pedal, I think. So
no, I like that. Yeah, I feel like I'm like a little bit, I get a little cloudy, right? Like, so I'm here, but I'm thinking about the next move, or I'm here and I'm thinking about 10 years from now, or I'm thinking about something somebody said. So I'm trying to like really practice like really being present. You know, I like stop drinking just to make sure like, oh, like I didn't feel like there's a thing there, but let's just take that out of the equation. Like I just want to be ultra clear. I want to like put, you know, good stuff into my body. I want to like be here, right? So yeah, when it comes to like my wife and kids, it's like, you know, there was a trend where my kids are like, you know, dad, dad. And it's like, why are they saying dad 25 times? It's because they already know that I don't listen on the first dad. I'm like somewhere else. You know, hey, dad, do you mind if I dad? And it's like, oh, my brain is on construction or my brain's on this other move instead of it being like, you know, dad, hey, what's up? Like, I'm right here. You know what I'm saying?
The like, focus or the recognition, like your attention, right?
So I gotta like zoom in, right, and like hear it. It's like you're telling me about like the infinite years. It's like, oh man, that's serious, right? Man, that I feel like that blessed me, like hearing that. Do you have like a hope at this point of like what you would want for people to think of you, or for people to remember, like if something happened to you? Like I'm not sure, you know what I mean? Like if something happened to you, what would you like hope people say?
I think like before, like that, just doing some little bit thinking on this by myself is that I do care what people think about me at my funeral, but at the end of the day, like when you think about eternity and the bigger things, is it really doesn't really matter what people think. What matters is what does God think of my life, right? So like I mean, just the big thing is like when you're at a funeral, people are sad, like they give you a eulogy. Oh, Daniel was like a good person. He helped whatever, like 100 people, 1,000,000 people, whatever. 10 years from there, no one's ever gonna remember your name or like think anything of you, right? Like you might have like a little picture like somewhere like in your grandkids probably won't even know, maybe right? Maybe. But you're not gonna be a thought like in like anybody's life. You basically didn't exist at that point in time. So like even the greatest guys like Kobe Bryant or Michael Jordan, in 100 years, like they basically did not exist. Like, you know, and so like the thing is like the most important thing I think in life is not what your funeral is going to look like, but what is God going to say about you in eternity, and what is your life in eternity going to look like?
Go, man, bless you, bro. That's why that blessed me.
But just like that. I mean, like just the way you live your life and like the way you take care of your family. To me, I super admire that. And so just kudos to you for just figuring out a way to just really maximize both your family but also like your business at the same time, and so
I don't know, like I there's not really like a balance for me, like I've never really been that balanced. So for me it's like, I just gotta like hit the gas pedal and like try to be as in everything as I can. Like I try to like run with the business, try to stay in shape, try to be there with my like not just don't miss stuff with my wife and kids. But I think like in that sometimes it kind of can get blurry. So it's like, I want to be like, I'm at everything, but I want to be at everything and like at it, like, you know, like fully present, like be there. Even with tenants, right? It's like, like they're like, hey, I'm going through this. It's like, oh, okay, cool. Like, but my brain's still thinking about everything else. Instead of like, oh man, like I'm really hearing what you're going through. It's like, man, that's something that I'm like, I'm under construction.
It's work in progress too, right? But the thing is like, we only have so much mental bandwidth to kind of like to allocate, right? So sometimes like if you put too much energy here, then like something else is gonna suffer. So like even when when you do prioritize your family, then like in the moment, then like your business is taking a back seat, and it's like if you just focus on business, you might make more money. And there's all these different things like energy, karma, the other things that maybe like in the long run you actually might make more. But like, basically, you're sacrificing like the priority of your business for your family in those like moments on the day to day, right? So.
Yeah. There's a clear example of that. So like, when I'm coaching my kids soccer, it's like, that's like third quarter, right?
Yeah.
So like business is going strong, like second quarter, slide in a third quarter, like, they say like what happens now is because of the work you did 6 months ago, right?
Yeah.
So in third quarter, I know like I'm going to be crazy busy with soccer. It's like 3 days a week, 2 or 3 teams. And it's like, I'm just not taking that many sales calls, right?
Yeah.
So then that will show in the first quarter because of the way like our conversion works. It's like takes time to like, meet with clients, understand their vision, partner on the job. And that's going to happen in like 4 or 6 months. So Q1, when everybody's like hitting the ground running, we're like, and I know that's
it's a trade-off, right? But the priority is your kids' soccer games, which is that's the priority now. And just you set it up in the back end with your business where there's enough income and there's enough thing for like throughout the year where you still are growing, you're still successful. You're just not growing to like the level if you're just like not focused on your family, right? So there's also a question for you also is how much is enough? So that's like a question like you got to ask yourself all the time too. But on that note, I know last year or the year, of 2022, you bought a G-Wagon, which is not a very What's the thought? How much did you buy it for, and what was the thought process behind that?
Okay, so the G-Wagon, it was like we found it it was used, right? So it was like mild used, and it was like I think it was like $180,000.
Okay.
But then,
which is crazy to buy like for a car, like
no, it's crazy. It's crazy. 180,000, and then after we were like, oh, you can get all these like extended warranty plans. So I was like, I just kept hearing the maintenance is real expensive. So it was like extended warranty and like unlimited maintenance and all this for like 5 years. So after taxes, everything, it's like it ends up like in the twos. So I think it was like 206,000 or 212. I should know the number, right? But like 206 or 212,000. So the reason why we bought it was, we had a Honda Odyssey, and it's like a Honda Odyssey's dope. Like you get crazy family memories. My kids like eat the goldfish and drop them on the ground or whatever. Like it doesn't, you know what I mean? You just vacuum it up, you like hose it off. It's no big deal. And that's like just a great family car. But I was like a little worried, like if if like there was like an end of the world scenario or something, just like something catastrophic. It was like, could my wife get out of town if I wasn't driving? So I was like, I want her to have like or if they got in an accident, I want her to have like a real solid like tank-like car. So so I always liked the G-Wagon. I thought it was like a real nice Jeep. I had no idea they were that much. I thought it was like $90,000.
It's crazy. Like a lot of times when like before you kind of like are in that world, you just see cars in the road. You're like, that's really nice. That's really nice. And then you're like, oh, this. And then there's like the car like it doesn't look like super crazy, but like that car is $200,000.
I had no idea. I literally thought it was like $80,000, $90,000. So I was like, oh. we just kept saying like, we just spoke into existence. We're like, oh, I think we're gonna get a G-Wagon. Oh, I think we're gonna get a G-Wagon. I really like the box design. It's timeless. It looks like the same car for 30 years. Like, we're just gonna get a G-Wagon. So then when I went to look at them, I was like, wait, what? This is crazy, right? Like, we literally went to go, and I was gonna get the older model. We went there, and you can find the older models for around that, like 100,000, 90,000. So we went to like a dealer to go look at these like older models, and my wife hated the cup holder. I don't know if you know this, but there's a thing about the older G-Wagon's cup holder. It's one cup holder, and it's like a net. It's unbelievable, bro. It's a net hanging from the side of like the
Dude, you know what's crazy is like, I don't know what it is about these luxury cars, but like
cup holders.
So we bought a Lambo and there is no cup holders.
There's none?
There's zero. And
so
I
didn't know that.
You can buy like an extra option, probably like 20 grand or something.
Wow.
For the net.
It's a net too?
It's stupid.
Oh my
like,
God.
It's just like, I don't know what these guys are thinking, but like
my wife was like, I can't, babe, I can't. And I was like, yo, we can't afford a new one. Like, let's just get this one. So like, I really like the older model. She was like, my wife's chill, bro. She's like an angel. And she was like, I will not. And it wasn't even like, it was crazy. It wouldn't hold anything. So I was like, talking to the dealer, like, oh man, we're just gonna like, keep looking. And he's like, well, look at this one. And he opens the door on like a brand new one. And like, it has everything, right? Cup holders. It has like all the like, like computer, like all the screens are sick, the displays, like everything about it's dope. But the price is like deep into the twos. So I was like, oh, like I felt poor, dude. Like, wait, what just happened? Like, I thought we were all right. So anyways, but I was like, but the dream started happening, right? Like, oh, like maybe I really like that car. It's got what I want. I feel like it's strong, it's got power, and it's safe for my wife and for my kids. And it was her turn to get a car.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, what do you want? She liked it. So we just started making a plan to get one. So then I started looking on the used market, and they were still crazy.
Yeah.
Right. But like if you dig, long enough, like finding a house, right, or like a flip, you like dig. We found like one that I felt like it was a good deal, and it was the one that we wanted. So we went there and made the purchase, and you start thinking like, oh, like you do the math, it's like, oh, that's actually not that crazy.
Yeah.
So we got it, and
so you're making a decent income, right? Like you guys are making like you're not like super crazy income, but like very, very high, like way more than like an average normal person at this point in time.
Yeah, I mean,
construction, real estate, rentals.
Yeah,
like,
we're living all right. We're living all right. Well, and then there was the then they were talking about the tax. The tax deduction. So it's like, oh, like if it's over 6,000 pounds, right? So we bought it right before the end of the year in 22.
Okay.
So you can still get 100% depreciation at that
point.
So
basically you buy a car for 200 grand and you get 100% tax deduction right off on your business for 200 grand, right? So
crazy. No, it's crazy. It's crazy.
Which is like, that's like a huge like tax savings like kind of hack, right?
Well, and we didn't do it on our own. So like I called, I called our CPA and I like really ran the numbers with them. And we had been making numbers about buying a big purchase for years. So it wasn't like overnight. It was like, oh, I'm going to get a G-Wagon. It was like, no, like we had strategized over it for at least 2 years about like how, like what would be a good write-off. Like we started looking at cars that were 6,000 pounds and that could be used as like, a business write-off. So there was like a whole strategy to it. It wasn't like
it wasn't a game time decision. It was like, hey, we put some thought and effort into this. We did the research. We tried to find the best deal possible. We talked to our CPA, and it was a very calculated decision.
Yeah,
a calculated decision.
Calculated. I mean, there's still emotion in it, but more calculated. Yeah.
Although like the initial starting point was the salesman opening up that door for your wife, right? Which is crazy. I think it's a good sales tactic, right? Like to get you to drive the car.
Yeah.
But the thing that's cool is like it's definitely a sales tactic, but it gets you dreaming.
Oh,
I think like whenever like you so you get into these big rooms, these guys doing crazy things, or you spoil yourself on a vacation, or you drive like a luxury car. It kind of like expands like your mind of what's possible and what you want out of life. And it's just a crazy thing where like just so much of life is just based on what you believe is possible and what you believe like you're worth, or like who you are. Yeah. And whenever when you drive the G-Wag, like I feel like you feel like a different person than when you drive the Odyssey,
Yeah. No, for sure. Like and like with 100% like respect, right? You're just like, oh, like so I think when they like opened the G-Wagon, the newer one, for us to look at it, I looked inside and was like, that's not like you kind of dreamy, but you're like, that's not us.
And that's me, yeah. Like
I drove a Volkswagen.
I'm a Toyota or like a Corolla guy. Like, you know, like, I'm not a G-Wagon guy.
Honda Civic,
like,
Honda Accord, like that's who I am, right?
I'm like, those are for other people. Not me. Like I can't afford that. Like that's not my identity. Is Toyota Corolla, 1990 Toyota Corolla, and that's just I'm a Toyota Corolla guy, right?
Yeah. So. No, same. So, but it did like spark, right? It was like somebody like lit a flame, and it was like, but like, what if? You know, you just start dreaming like, what if that? And then you drive it, and you're like, oh, I'm driving it just like somebody else would drive it, and it drives really well. Like this is.
Were you nervous when you took it out for a
Oh my God. I was like driving it like so slow. He's like, man, you got to stomp on it. And I'm like, I'm good. You know, like are we like, I didn't want to park it.
Two was like 300 G's on your thing right now. It's like, I
was parking so slow. Like, he's like, you could back it up. It's like, I'm good. Like, yeah, I was like real afraid to drive it. I felt like, you know, it wasn't really for us.
Yeah.
But it wasn't, you know, it was like a, imposter syndrome type thing. Like, but then you start dreaming, and I had already said it 100 times. Like, I think we're gonna get a G-Wagon. I think we're gonna get a G-Wagon. So then we kind of like, you know, it happened. But fast forwarding, it's like now we have it. It's like there is something. Like if I'm driving the Honda Odyssey for a week, and then I jump into the G-Wagon, it's like, oh, okay. Like there's a little bit of power here.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of luxury, like everything, seat heater, seat cooler, 600 horses basically, and it rides really well, and you start feeling like, oh, like kind of like what's next. And I'm not talking about cars, but like what's next. Like you pull up to a building, you know, to eat or something, and it's like somebody owns this building.
Yeah.
And it's not like just like the G-Wagon. It's like the G-Wagon's for those people. No, it's for us people. And then you see the building. It's like, oh, that's not just for those people. They just made different decisions in life to get there. You know, like. Did you feel like that when you were getting the Lambo? Like, were you feeling like...
It was crazy. I mean, it was crazy. So, like, just like I think when, right before we bought the Lambo, like my other car broke down. I had to drive this beater. It was crazy. This
like
beater.
What kind?
I don't know what. I think I want to guess it was like a Sentra
or something.
It was like the roll down the windows.
Yeah.
I was struggled to get to like 40 miles an hour. Like, I kid you not. Like,
yeah, I believe it.
Like, it was like a 20, 40, like 30, 40. I couldn't even drive the freeway. It was like, it's so terrible, right? So I was like, and then so it's weird because, so I mean, I feel like I'm like an average guy, right? So like I had like a decent car. I think I had like a Lexus, so like nothing crazy, but like, okay, it's like a normal person, right? When I drove like that thing and I pull up to like the restaurant or whatever, and like you're like rolling down your window or rolling up your window, like the noise is just like this clunker. And then when I get out of the car, I just feel like people are looking at me like I'm poor. So like, I mean, and nothing against it, but just like your image of who you believe about yourself is like, this is who I am, like, you know. And then it's crazy after we bought the Lambo, like we drive it around, and then everybody's like, wow, like what do you do for a living? Like they treat you like you're, like it's your worth is based on what you're driving, like in so many people's eyes. And it's weird how like when people like treated me like that, it kind of affected like my identity or my self-worth, like of like what I thought I was worth. And so it's just like this. I was not expecting that. It was just like hey, let's just have some fun, like, you know, like some taxes, like, etc. But like just when I actually had the experience of the way that people saw you, interacted with you, and treated you, it like really affected like my like that. Wow, oh, actually maybe I am like successful, or maybe I am like the kind of person. But it's just crazy how like psychologically that kind of really like plays with like who your sense of self and identity, you know?
Yeah, I love talking about that part because I think like, and I love hearing that you felt like that, because like I think it's something like people feel like they can't talk about that part, but and it's not like fake. It's like, no, dude, I think we talked about it before. It's like, oh, like when you know, my son or my daughters, when I get them new shoes, they're like, look, Dad, look how fast I can run. They put on these brand new shoes and they're running and they're like giggling and they really are like running around the house like, look how fast I am. I get my son some, you know, basketball shoes with the Air Max and he's like, I can jump higher, right? And like that was like in the 80s, and you know what I mean? It's like always like, oh, like, and even before that, like PF Flyers or whatever, right? Like the Sandlot. He puts the shoes on, like now he can outrun the dog, right? So it's like that's real life. You put like, if you talk to like a football player, they're like in game mode. But when they put the helmet on, they're like, I'm gonna hit somebody, right? You put on boxing gloves, you're like, oh, I'm gonna hit somebody, like you're ready. It's the same thing. You step into a Honda Odyssey, it's like, I'm about to go to a soccer game, right? But when I get in the G-Wagon, it's like, oh, like I'm in there and it's like, oh, like I'm ready to do some business or I'm ready to like make a move. Like you start feeling a certain way, thinking a certain way. There's definitely like something physiological that happens there. And it is like that. Like you pull up and people are like, oh, dang, right? Or like you pull up to a valet and they're like, did you want to park it in the front of the casino?
They treat you way differently, right? I mean, like I have a bunch of different stories about valets, the way that they'll go out of their way to like please you or things, or just because the perception of who you are, you know, so.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's just trying to get something from you. I think it's like, how did you, you know, like on that movie, I forget the name of The Pursuit of Happiness. He's like, how'd you get that car? Like, what did you do to it? It's like, I think that's what the attention is. It's like, man, how did you do that? Because you look like me, right? And for me, I didn't really know anybody that looked like me that had like multiple streams of income, you know, rentals or like crazy cars, right? And probably you, right? It's like,
so my bubble was like middle America, like, you know, like, so.
But I think it's cool, right? So like whatever school you grew up at, like whatever friend circle you were in, it's like, no, like, all right, there's like an incline here and I can go back and say like, man, it's not like, I'm not a genius. It's like, no, it's like, you know, I could have went left and I went right. I could have went right and I could have went left. And like, and I pray through those moves and hopefully I make the right move. But it's like, you can do it too. It's like, we just got to make some decisions and like in some ways like run towards fear. And it's hella scary.
No, it definitely is. It definitely is. Yeah.
Yeah, it's hella scary.
I think what also too is true is that it's the vehicle that you're in. And when I say vehicle, I mean like the job or the occupation. Because at my W-2, I gave just as much effort. I worked just as hard. But I'm like over here, right? Like capital, like 80 grand, like maybe 100 if you do really well. But then the same effort and drive and in real estate investing, now you're over here and I'm the same person. But just like the vehicle that I'm like putting my energy and effort into, just returning like a way higher ROI. And so just, like it would not, all this stuff that I have now would not be possible without me kind of switching careers from like being a software developer to now being a real estate investor.
No, that's a great way to put it. So it's like, oh, that beater that you were driving, you had your foot on the pedal and it didn't go anywhere. In the Lambo, you put your foot on the pedal, it goes somewhere. It's a different vehicle, right? So it's like same story. It's like that W-2, man, I really was going and I was like top 1%, but it was never going to get me there. So, and I know so many people that have W-2 jobs. I'm not crapping on W-2.
No,
it's for sure great, right? For some people. But if you have that itch, I like encourage people, if you have that itch to leave, I'm like, I feel like that's like one of the biggest passions in my life. If you have this urge to leave because it's not fitting, like if you look at the end in mind, like what you want your life to look like, my sister always says like, tell me where you want to go, and then we just have to figure out how to get there, right?
I love that.
So, yeah, right? Like, you want to be a doctor? You can do it, but here's what you got to go through. You want to do this? You can get there. Here's what you got to do to do it. So it's like, you know, you want 15% body fat? You can do it. Here's the roadmap to get there. So it's like, oh, if you want to be able to like have some financial freedom, you want to have some like time freedom, you want to get your time back. Like, here's what you're in. If you're feeling like you do the math, this W-2 thing isn't gonna give me this. It's not gonna give you freedom. You can't go to the park on the middle of a Wednesday. You can't, you know, just take 3 weeks off to take a road trip across country. Like if your job can't get you that and you're burning to do it, you gotta run. You know what I'm saying? And I like yell it, dude. Like cause you deserve it. You're just scared. Everybody's scared. I was crazy scared. Scared, dude. Like praying, seeking counsel. They're like, leave. And I'm like, you sure? They're like, leave. I'm like, I'm leaving. Wait, no, I'm not. Like scared for years. And I like regret that I can't get those years back where I was like dreaming and dreaming and dreaming and dreaming. It's like, man, dream, but it takes action, right? Like, how long were you like dreaming?
It starts with a dream, right? And that's like the first step. That's, you step into the G-Wag, you step into like, you see somebody else like, they're with their kids, like someone like yourself. So there's guys right now who are like listening to this. They see Mark and they're dreaming like, wow, like I want that life. But it's like, that's just the beginning. The next step is, okay, all the grind, the hard works, the failures, falling over, but still picking yourself up and continue to like fight for that dream actually make it a reality, right?
Well, and I think that's what we were saying is like, oh, like, so when you pull up in the Lambo and the people are like going out of their way to help you. I think it's part of it, right? Like, I don't think it's like they're just like kissing your butt. I think they're like, man, how did you do that? They want to be near that. So it's like, for me to be in like the Wealthy Way program with Ryan Pineda, it's like, oh, I want to be around people that are doing next level stuff. I want to I want to be next to them. Like, how did you do that? How did you do $700K a month? How did this dude did 2 million last year? How'd you do 2 million? You're like a regular dude. Like, how did you do that? And he's like, I am a regular dude. But he made different decisions, right? So it's like, they see the Lambo, you're a regular dude, chill, down to earth. It's like, how did you do that? I want to be near that. Like, so I think they're going out of their way to like understand it and just be a part of it. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, totally. I totally get you.
So, man, I love that. It's like, I mean, in terms of the like, time freedom, is there something that you're just like, is there like moments where you're like, man, this is why I left? Like, is there like a time freedom where you're just like, oh, so grateful that you aren't at W2?
I just pinch myself. I like, just like, it's just, I'm like, every day I wake up, I'm like, but the thing is, like, what's crazy is like, when I was working my W2 and I was like, just like renting a basement for $1,000 a month, like whatever, and never planned to own a house, I was very happy. Like, I felt like I was still content, like, just because I think my relationship with God and things was like there's more to life than just finances.
Yeah, you have enough.
So like, I have like, okay, I can live, I can eat. I live in America, which is like, just that's by itself is just enough for me. It's like, okay, I have good family, good friends. Like, I got a girlfriend, maybe she'll become my wife, you know? I'm happy. Like, I don't need a whole lot, but then and so when I did have the success or the time frame that we have now, and like some of the other cool things like the Lambo, it's super, super grateful, and I pinch myself like every day. But at the same time, I'm just as content now than I was back then, you know?
100%, 100%, dude, 100%. We had this like moment where, I mean, like when we were broke, we were happy. We used to go to like Costco because it was like the hot dogs $1.50. So we would like date, right? My wife and I, we would go on dates. We'd go to Costco like a lot of Saturdays. We'd go to Costco, we'd get a hot dog, and like, and sometimes we'd share a slice of pizza. And then it was like, we're like, oh, like, let's go cruise around Costco. We wouldn't spend any money, but we would like eat all the samples. So it was like, oh, that's cool. Like, I would like wash down the hot dog with like some joint juice.
Go back around for a second time or something.
Yeah, and I would, you know, it's always weird when you get the sample. You're just like, oh, this is amazing. Like, where are these? Oh. And then you're not buying them.
You pretend like you actually
it's crazy. I always feel like I gotta say something. And they're like, oh, you can get these. They're only $10. And it's like, oh,
it's so funny. I do the exact same thing. I'm always like, you're fake pretending, like, oh, so how much are they? But then you're like, I'm not gonna buy this.
Oh, this is like it's sweeter than I thought. It's like, right? But like, I have no intention. I'm just like snacking, bro. So, but I like, you know, we would cruise around Costco and just like chill and like there went a couple hours, right? Just hanging out, dreaming of like what's in Costco, like all the TVs, all the different things, and like I was fine then, you know. But I did have a thing about the time when I was at work. That was something that weighed on me, was like, I don't have any control here of the ceiling, and I don't have control of like how long my lunch is.
This is security for yourself and your family down the lines, right? Just like you feel like now that you have like a little bit more wealth or things like opportunities, now like, number one, you can have more time with your kids, but also like you feel like the future is more secure for your family. Like, you know, like versus like before, you like, I'm not sure what's gonna happen if I die, or like I'm uncertain. But like now that I have a certain level, like we have options to do more cooler things. It's happy in a different way, but just as content. But then like my future of me and my family just feels more secure, like financially. Right? So
well, and it seems like there's a piece about you, right? So like I see you with like your girl, and you seem like really in love, right? So like that's cool, right? Like you're like, oh, dude, I'm like with somebody I love, and like I see the way that you like walk with her. It's like, oh, there's something like beautiful about that, instead of like, nah, I'm with this fool, like whatever, you know what I mean? Like, like you're like in love, and that's like, it's crazy, dude. Like that's like cool, right?
I appreciate that.
I mean, you can see it, right? Like I'm in a lot of rooms with like a fair amount of couples, and it's like, oh, dude, like they really love each other, and there's something cool about that. And then it's cool to know that you have like some financial freedom and some time freedom, where it's like, oh man, if I'm just saying, like if somebody's feeling uncared for or overlooked or whatever, it's like, oh, we have some time to slow things down and like really spend time and attention on each other. So many people, they're like running. Like, you know, the husband works W-2, the wife works W-2, everybody's running, or they're like solopreneurs, they're running in different directions. And it's like, next thing you know, it's like 9 years happened and like, you're not like in love. You kind of like grew apart or something.
I think it's like an important point that you make, that money can't buy you happiness, but then it can definitely make it easier for you to be happy. Like, you know, like a lot of problems that are caused by money can be solved by money as well too. Right? Like time together, or like certain, like if you're not stressed financially, like what's gonna happen here, where that financial stress bleeds over into your relationships at times 100%. Too, right? So,
100%. Like figuring, like, dude, if you're worried about keeping the lights on or where you're gonna live or can you make rent, that's a crazy stress, a heavy stress. You know,
especially as like the provider of the family, right? So you take it on your wife or your kids, and then like they feel it, and then now there's just this cycle of just like of downwardness, right?
Yeah. So. No, I mean, I think like, I think there's like these wins, and then like with the losses, right? Like in entrepreneurial world, it's like, oh, the wins can be big and the losses can be big. Yeah. But like, oh, I know I can like tweak something and win again.
Yeah, I can figure it out. Like the belief,
But if it's like slow loss and you don't have any control, you don't have any.
There's no light at the end of the tunnel. Like you feel like I have like there's, you feel like maybe like you told me to, like there's nothing I can do to change my course of action or control my destiny. Versus like as an entrepreneur, you're like, I know I lost money this month, but I know I can make it back, or I'm gonna be back on the rise like next month or next year, right? So
I think like if I touched on it for a second, it's like when I was in the W-2 world and I was like dreaming of leaving, finally I like left, right? And we started the construction company. I'm in it. My wife supports me. And then I started realizing like, I wasn't like, I was there as a dad, but I was like there and like fully in, well, very in, but I wasn't like taking them to school and I wasn't picking them up. I wasn't doing these things. My wife just did it. Right. Yeah. So I was like, okay, now I got some time. I'm going to start taking the kids to school and I'm going to pick them up. So my wife was like, great. Right. So she still had a W-2. Yeah. She worked at the college. And I started like taking them to school and picking them up. And then it's like, whoa, dude, that happens real fast. Like there's not a lot of time to build a business. So I was like taking them to school, you know, trying to like build the business, picking them up from school. I'm not going to work out. I'm not, you know what I mean? So it was like too much for me to handle. So I had this talk with my wife. I was like, hey man, I'm picking them up. I'm taking them down, And I'm like, I started spiraling out of control, like feeling like real lost, like the business isn't going to work. I started getting depressed and like anxious. So I sat my wife down and said, hey, look, you know, I take him to school, I pick him up, and I'm like running around, and then I'm like trying to help with dinner. Like nobody can do this. Like nobody can do what I'm doing. And she's like, man, I've been doing it the whole time, right? She's been like, you know, like taking them to school, getting them ready, changing the diapers for years. And that was like 1,000 I'm sorry's ago. You know, I just started saying, I'm sorry. Like, I'm sorry. Like, I didn't, because I was there, but so much was happening without me seeing it. But once I had more time freedom and a little bit of financial freedom, I started realizing, oh, I'm here, but I'm not here. Yeah. You know? So now, and I didn't realize that, like, there was, like, a little bit of a drift in my relationship because of that, right? But now, I guess what I'm trying to say is that because I had more time to really be present, I started realizing like, oh dude, me and my wife were fully like in love, but like in love with our kids. And we love each other, but you can slowly start drifting. And like with your kids, you can slowly start drifting. Yeah,
it's like a slow fade, right?
Yeah, slow fade, dude, if your mind's somewhere else or if you're busy. But like having a little bit more time, it's like, oh, like now you can be in it. You can be present on the important stuff.
Yeah, no, 100%.
Yeah, man, craziness.
So I feel like I could talk to you for hours, man. Just like so much good, like just like the resonate on so many different levels and so many different things, you know. But just for like the sake of sanity or like that, I know you got some places to go, but just if people want to reach out to you or like connect with you, where can they do so?
Yeah, so our main thing is Instagram. So my name is Mark Benjamin Lopez. Okay. So it's M Ben Lopez at Instagram, I guess, or whatever, at IG. And then our construction company is 5 Walnut Construction, FIVE Walnut. So, and they're on Instagram as well. So it's 5 Walnut Construction on IG. And our content's pretty cool. I think like my wife's on a fair amount of it. I
love seeing your stories. Like that's another cool thing. Like I always see like you and your wife are working together out. I can tell you guys have a really good relationship. Like, you know, it's like when couples fight but they're happy fighting, that's always like there's a good back and forth like dynamic, right? Like if there's happy fighting and there's like angry fighting. Like you guys are always like happy fighting. Like it's a good back and forth. Like
that's my girl. She's my best friend. You know, so we work together, and she's my girl, dude. So it's like a good time. It's a good working environment. You know, so yeah, dope, man. I appreciate you having me on, man.
Same. Thank you, bro.